All right, what up, people? It's another episode of Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Pat,
we are back. We are back. Welcome back,
man.
Jay. Good to see you.
Yo, it's been too long. I was missing you there.
Yo, man, I don't ask you questions when you go away and vice versa, but you came back like my complexion. So wherever you went, it was sunny, man.
Well, listen, man, you came back so relaxed. I thought you were, almost 6 feet under. You were too relaxed, man.
Yo, man, but I'm charged, though. We're back. And nice to see that we were missed. We got, a lot of emails when you guys getting back on the air. Yeah, it's been a long 2 weeks, but so let's get right into it,
good
man.
Good to see you.
Same here,
All
brother.
right. Tonight's episode, Stick and Move or Stuck Out of Groove. Pat, transitions and change. Some people get it. Some people can't move on. Let's start with a very, very hot topic. We left, and Jay-Z bought into the NFL,
First of all, the timing is so crazy. Like, as soon as we get off the air, something that juicy happens. So, look, I'm going to get right into it.
Tell me.
You know I'm always quoting lyrics. And actually, I quoted this one a couple of episodes ago, but what you eat doesn't make me shit. Classic Jay-Z lyric. And I'll bring it full circle to that in a moment. But let's take Eric Reed, for example. Eric Reed plays for the NFL. He supported Colin Kaepernick. And yet, he's cashing checks from the NFL, but he's angry Jay-Z's cashing a check from the NFL. Let me tell you, I'm in complete support of Colin Kaepernick. Complete support. And most people I know are in complete support of Colin Kaepernick. The reality is he did what he did for his reasons, and the subject was hijacked by our nation's leader and by others, the media outlets. But you can support his movement, but that doesn't make him the committee. Like, you don't have to run everything by Colin Kaepernick now. And being on the sidelines trying to make change is one way to try to make change, but infiltrating is another way to try to make change. Mm-hmm. So Colin's point was to bring awareness to injustices in America. He has done that. Jay-Z now has a seat at the table. Like, you can't complain to not have representation, then get representation and complain about that. So now Jay-Z's a sellout? Are you kidding me? Listen, no one's perfect. I'm not going to go build a statue of Jay-Z outside my house. But facts, like, not my opinion, he has gotten people out of jail. He has supported Meek Mills. He's done documentaries about these people that are wrongfully imprisoned. Like, he's literally putting his money where his mouth is. Mm-hmm. Does that make him Christ? Does that make him perfect? No. But he's trying. Yeah. Right? So let's just say he wasn't trying. Let's say he was just posturing and just trying to get over. Even then, what do you care? Like, these billions are being distributed anyway. Right. Fat cats are getting fatter anyway. So if Jay-Z gets a slice of that pie, what business is it of mine? Like, so what I'm saying is, even if he's just getting over for profit, my response to that is, who cares? And the fact that he has a proven track record of doing all kinds of philanthropic great things, he deserves a shot for you to not judge him. I think people literally have got nothing better to do than criticize. Also, let me just say, if the NFL is just doing this as a PR stunt to be able, you know how there are racist white people who will tell people, I'm not racist, I have a black friend, right? And it's not genuine. If some people think that the NFL is doing this to make themselves look better, meanwhile Colin can't get a job, and he's clearly one of the 60 best quarterbacks on the earth, but he can't get a job as a backup quarterback, even if they're doing it for the wrong reasons, they still gave him a seat at the table.
All right, I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to take a completely different view. And the reality is that you're 100% right that Jay-Z, this is a power move for Jay-Z. He's now a kingpin in entertainment. And if you are an urban hip-hop, rap, R&B musician, Jay-Z is now your master. Because if you want exposure and understand that the NFL halftime show is the ultimate exposure, if you want promotion and understand that playing at an NFL stadium is the ultimate promotion, you now have to go through Jay-Z. Okay? So from a business standpoint, Jay-Z took advantage of an opportunity that was presented to him because they needed a token. And you're 100% right that, who cares? This is his move. But from the standpoint of what we're talking about, transition and change, the reality is that Jay-Z saw the opportunity to advance himself. And regardless of whether or not that comes as a power move for him, it comes at a social, I don't want to say disingenuous, but it comes at a social disparity in terms of the fact that there are times where, see, again, he boycotted the halftime show, and now he's got a seat at the table. So you're looking at it from the standpoint of he's played his chip and advanced himself. But at the same time, the following, the masses, the people that buy these records and listen to these artists, they realize that it's hollow, it's superficial, it's not with the movement, the struggle. And that is where people have a problem, is that from a leadership perspective, he has failed to stay with the movement.
I understand the sensitivity. I really do. But I think people need to look at the big picture. Because sometimes we hold our own to a higher standard. Mm-hmm. Like, it's incredible to me. And as far as him turning down the halftime show and now partnering with them, sometimes you have to set your own terms.
I don't disagree with you.
Call your own shot.
And my question to you is that from the standpoint of vision, is it simply a matter of Jay-Z having an opportunity to share his vision, or is it a matter of the vision that was put forth from the struggle, from what Colin Kaepernick brought to public attention?
To answer your question, I think at some point you got to look at somebody's track record. Okay. Right? Like, he didn't become who he became. And I say this not...
So is it a matter of people accepting his leadership going into this position?
Well, he didn't become who he became caring what everybody thinks, first of all. Right? That's
okay.
Jay-Z. I think that goes for most highly successful people. Make your own path. You're a leader, not a follower. Secondly, I don't think it matters, because if his actions are a byproduct of someone else's leadership, that's still commendable, because any great leaders, their thoughts and their visions give birth to someone else's visions, right? So even if he's piggybacking, that's there's some humility in that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But even if he had the vision all along, and then maybe Colin's movement helped push that door down, once the door is open, let's barge in. Let's do something. Look, no situation is perfect. Here's what I do know, and I'll close with this. His presence at the table isn't making anything worse.
I'll agree with that. However, I'm going to close by saying that I think that he's an opportunist who is advancing himself But at the same time, he may have a vision, which he has not shared with anybody, because I'll give Jay-Z credit on something that you said, which is that he does do a lot of very philanthropic and thoughtful things, although he comes across as a capitalist. And there's nothing wrong with that. I fully support a capitalist. I'm simply saying that for the movement, for the people that are looking at the struggle, their difficulty with accepting Jay-Z in this position and saying that he's a sellout is the fact that it's very hard to keep the struggle true and honest. So again, our topic tonight is in terms of transition and change. And my question to you going into the next segment, when we come back, is about whether or not it's us accepting this new transition or us denying the change because it's not honest with the movement, the struggle that people, in other words, this guy has veered off the path. He's going in a completely different direction where everybody was going one way.
Let me just say, let's postpone the break for a moment. There's a time and a place for everything. So there's a time and a place for protest.
Yeah.
There was a time and a place for riots.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time and a place for marches. There's a time and a place for surveys and polls and door-to-door. There's all types of levels and all types of things that you do that can be done to bring awareness or take action. And the one thing you cannot do is keep doing the same thing, because everything has to evolve. And, change is not going to come without change. This whole subject is transition, right? There's more than one way to skin a cat. So I'm not saying that what Colin did was wrong or is dated. I'm saying there are multiple roads to get to the same goal. And, black people or even people of other races who all have the same vision, there's more than one way to, and there's different personalities. Like, we're not one monolithic group, right? So different people can have different approaches. And Jay-Z is a billionaire now. His reach is different. So,
but if the average person can't identify with what he is seeing, you see, again, we're stuck here because the mass movement is going in one direction, and Jay-Z has now gone in a tangent to that.
I think that's perception.
And it is perception, but it's also a matter of what you're talking about, that there was a time for things, and he may see a new opportunity. And again, I said he's an opportunist. The issue is, how do you get people to accept change when it goes against their very fundamental core?
I'm glad you asked that question. And the answer is results. This whole notion...
But even when somebody has results, even when they have a resume and a track record,
but
people don't necessarily trust it because of their fear of what's happened in their past, not that person's past.
Correct. And you're as good as what happened yesterday. People have every short-term memory.
Yeah, performance is your reality.
So that being said, in the end, a year from now, 18 months from now, whenever, at some point, people are going to look at, the conversation changes from, well, what's he going to do? To, oh, I see what he did. Oh.
Right.
So
unless he fails. In which case, they're angry. He hasn't lost anything, because even in failure, Jay-Z is still going to be successful. He's a billionaire, as you said. He can't lose. The NFL can't lose.
Well, hold on. He can lose in the court of public opinion.
I can't disagree with you in terms of that. However, when I say he can't lose, what I'm saying to you is this. Jay-Z's future, his heritage, everything, his empire will not lose from this. It's a seat at the table, exactly as you said. even if he fails, he already is through the door. So there are things that he has already sealed his fate in a positive direction of advancement. That's the first thing. The NFL loses nothing either way because they say, hey, we took a shot. If he fails, oh, you know what? At least we gave him a shot. Look, we're benevolent. If he succeeds, they say, hey, you know what? It worked out for us. We made this, agreement, and look what it's done for us. So they don't lose either way. Jay-Z doesn't lose either way. My point to you is that the people who feel it are the people who have everything to lose, and that is the average person. Because for them, it's about the movement, it's about the struggle, it's about whether they want to accept this new direction of leadership, because whether or not you like it, Jay-Z is a leader.
So I don't know how many people you had like one-on-one conversations with about this, but this reminds me of the people that were doing the Occupy Wall Street.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I'm not insensitive. I'm not that much of a jerk. But a lot of people take stances because they're sheep. Like, listen to what I'm saying here to my listeners here. It was a thing to do to criticize Jay-Z. Like, meaning you're sitting here, you're making like points.
Mm-hmm.
But the average lame, that's what they are. Mm-hmm. They're sheep, they are lame. Woke up that morning and the thing to talk about, because all it is an alert on your phone.
Yes.
People aren't following the story beat by beat. It's just an alert. And the way the world is now, which annoys me, is people formulate an entire opinion off of a blurb.
And that's my point, is they get stuck based on where they are, not where things are going.
And to me, that position has zero leg to stand on, it has zero credibility. And in the end, all it takes is another story the next day, and they're off of it. So that you're not really that passionate about it. It's the thing to talk about on that day. You don't really have an opinion. You don't really know what you're talking about. And the very next subject that comes up, you'll be all over that one. So kick rocks.
All right. When we come back, Pat, our president can't seem to get off his own tweets, even when he's called out on them. We'll be right back. All right, this is Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Pat, Instagram has taken over. And what amazes me is it's these Cougars, 50-year-old supermodels like J-Lo on their boat taking pictures that's got the world in a frenzy. Explain it to me, man. What is going on in the world?
I mean, there's two sides to this story. First of all, she's hot. Halle Berry's hot. Salma Hayek is hot. They've been hot. They're going to be hot. And
they're not aging.
And
or are they aging and we're just missing something?
No, they're aging, but they're just getting better because it's real beauty. Like, I think you mentioned the Instagram models. The other side to that is, all the women with the enhancements, surgery or whatnot, and they're doing things just for the gram. I mean, we just named like classic beauties.
Yeah. 3
different races, of women, but they're beautiful and they're getting better with age, like fine wine, right? I don't even think it's fair. It's like an insult to them to put them in the category of the other Instagram models. And I'm not knocking anyone. I mean, I'm not saying I've never seen a young, 19, 21-year-old, 25-year-old beautiful girl on Instagram. I mean, you're like, wow, like she's perfect, right?
Right.
But I just think the bigger subject is, well, first to your point, these Cougars are these, oh my goodness, they're just beautiful. It's very impressive to me. Mm-hmm. And the other women, you're like, wow. But what stands out to me, I remember it being a thing to convince a girl to show you her breasts, right?
Yeah.
Like think about it. Just yesterday, it was, how can I get her to show me anything?
Right.
And they're talking about like half the time, boys dating a girl, That's his girlfriend. He likes her. They're alone in some cut party, and he's hoping he can see her tits, right?
Uh-huh.
Today, without provocation, without a relationship, instead of what women were once nervous to show the guy they like their tits.
Now you're trading them on text.
Today, forget text. I'm going to get on Instagram and show the planet my tits.
Yeah.
Explain that shit to me.
All right. So, obviously, this is way beyond my understanding. But I'm gonna give you my speculation. Content is king. And everybody wants attention. And the only way to separate yourself or to get the likes, get the attraction, is to do what people are demanding. So right now you have the Instagram models, everybody, trying to show themselves in a way that's going to be, exotic or attention getting. The issue that I see it as, and this is sort of what's fascinating, is that you have the comparison of three natural beauties you just mentioned, all in their later 40s, early 50s, that have maintained their natural beauty and are promoting it now on Instagram to get attention, versus all the other young women that are in Instagram that do not have celebrity status, that are changing their bodies in order to do the same thing. What's happening is already there's a glut of people showing themselves. So we're eventually going to get numb to this as well. And my only, concern or, curiosity is, are we going to go back to a more conservative position where we don't necessarily want to see that, or we value someone who doesn't show themselves on the gram?
See, I think it's all personality based. If a person doesn't like a showy person or doesn't like a showy look at me personality, they're not going to go for that kind of person that's showing themselves. So that's one. Others have no problem with it. Personally, I don't judge anyone who does what they do. I question the reasons why, but I don't really care. Like, what you do, it's your business. If that's what you want to do. I think attention is the new drug. Attention is crack in the 80s.
Yeah.
Today, hey, look at me. That is the drug.
Yeah.
And if you can...
It's the endorphins, it's the dopamine.
If you can hustle that or harness that to profit, so be it. If you can harness it to a platform that brings attention to something else that you're doing,
right?
Do your thing. I'm just saying. And if you're just an exhibitionist, if you're just showing your body for no other reason, I can't even judge that. I would caution someone I cared about to value yourself, and don't. What makes it special is if it's a select few who can see you. But if you're the kind of person that wants the world to see you, I can't knock it. But, I just think your actions should be purposeful in some way. But again, the argument could be made that the purpose is just to get the attention, and that's all you want. And if that's what drives you, hey, man, I can't knock it. But so just two sides to it again. The beauty, the natural beauties, I see it, I look, I enjoy it, I think it's great. And for those that have their own reasons, I think that's great too. But I will say, whatever your reasons are, let them be your own reasons. And so long as you're being true to yourself, so be it. I can't judge, but I just, because I'm not 18
right,
and I've seen the transition back to our theme, right? It's just noteworthy to me. Because I see it feels like it happened overnight.
So let me ask you this question in terms of what we're seeing on the gram, and in terms of the exposure that people are giving to the world now of themselves, both physically and I think emotionally, because there's an emotional component to this that you just said it. It's the new drug, the thrill, the high that you get from the attention. That's an emotional thing. So, our main topic tonight, really in terms of, love and sex is about emotional needs versus physical deeds, and what happens when you're in a rut in a relationship where, there could be a fear of intimacy, there could be love avoidance, there could be things that are in your past that surface, there could be other issues that have to do with anxiety. I mean, there's 40% of the population apparently suffers from anxiety. You are in a generation and a time period now where attention is a drug, yet at the same time, people are terrified of the world around them and themselves. And in a relationship, you're dealing with these issues. How do you move on? How do you grow? How do you change?
Let's pause there. We got to pay some bills. We'll be right back.
All right. We're back. This is Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Pat, our president can't seem to get past his own tweets. And I'm specifically referring to Hurricane Dorian, and the fact that he said that it was going towards Alabama. Alabama could, potentially be in the path. Wound up that it's not the case, and he got caught out on it, yet he won't let it go. What is it about people, and now I'm getting into relationships, you have an argument, and you can't let go of your point regardless of whether you're caught out there or not. Why can't people transition? Why can't they change when it's an ego thing? What is it about the ego? What is it about the person that they can't seem to humble themselves or, realize what they really have? They can't see the big picture. They can't see the forest for the trees.
Well, first, as far as Trump is concerned, the reference, not just him, but everybody in the world, you should know what you're talking about before you open your mouth. Like, people don't know how dumb you are until you open your mouth. So, just in general, I don't want to give him any more attention than that. Just in general, before you speak on a subject, you should know what you're talking about. That's it. Even if it's just an opinion, it should be a formulated opinion. That being said, just to answer your question, in relationships, let's start at the beginning, right?
Okay.
The number one thing with relationships in the beginning is
sex.
Well, you send your representative.
Okay.
The person you're dating doesn't meet you.
No.
They meet this version of you.
Right.
Right.
The best version of you.
Right. And vice versa. So
you're being a salesperson.
And it's not that you're being phony. It's just there's this. You have all this shit with you, right? We all have shit with us that we carry, right?
Right.
And you don't reveal that crap. You put your best foot forward. So when you're dating on both sides, the shower is extra long, the hair is extra tight, you worked out that morning.
Yeah. You put a bow on with some whipped cream and cherry on top.
Clothing, perfume, cologne, whatever. Then there's the plans, right? You're not sitting on your couch watching Netflix, maybe. Chances are you went out someplace, bought tickets to a nice show, went to a nice dinner. So everything about it, it's not that it's fictitious, but it's the best.
Right.
Right? Okay. So that person starts to dig what you showed them and vice versa. Now you're spending a little bit more time together. Right? Let me just also say, mentally that day, you're in a good mood. You're ready to go out. You're trying to get some ass. So everything is right with the world. Okay. And even those don't always work out. But let's say it works out. Mm-hmm. Both sides. Now you're spending more time together. Next stage, you spend the night. Mm-hmm. The next morning, somebody didn't have their makeup on or whatever. They just don't, it's not dark in the room anymore.
Well, let me also, I have to interject and say that you spend the night the next morning based on how good it was. You might get up and make breakfast, or the other person might, where the makeup and all of that shit doesn't even matter because it was that fantastic.
But it's layers that are being peeled off.
Right.
So you fast forward, then you might do the thing that puts the relationship on a fast track. So instead of just dates, you go away for a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going away for a weekend speeds up the process of everything, right?
Of course.
So now you get to a hotel, the reservation isn't right. Maybe you see the person who planned it, whether it's whichever part of the relationship, and they're dealing with this person. You see them flip the hell out.
Right.
You're like, wow, it's not that serious. I'm seeing their temper.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like a lot of things can happen. So all of that to say, fast forward again, just to bring it full circle to your question. So a lot of times the whole stick and move or stuck out of groove concept is now I figured out who you are. You figured out who I am, and we don't really like those people.
Right.
I want the person that I met those first 3 weeks, right?
Right.
So I don't think it's always that people are unwilling to move on. I just think it might be a few months before you get blindsided or you didn't see it coming, this person that you have to deal with. And then, so now, again, you asked about an argument or why people can't just move on. It may not be the subject they're arguing about. It might be the fact, like, they might be arguing about, I thought you were going to pick me up at 7. We got our signals crossed. You picked me up at 8:30. How could you? That's so inconsiderate. Blah, blah, blah. So person A is thinking, yo, you're beefing that much about 90 minutes? But person B is actually beefing about the fact that she doesn't like you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just thinking, like, a lot of times on the surface, it's one issue. But if you peel off the layers and look deep in it, it's the fact that you're not compatible.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Because when it's a real good situation, let's say you're dating somebody who's habitually late. Mm-hmm. They're always tardy. You know what love does? Love creates patience, right? So the person is like, oh, that's my baby. She's always late. You don't even like that she's late. But you love her so much, you're like, all right, that's just who she is. But if you're not digging that person, the fact that she's so late will annoy the hell out of you. So my point is, these arguments that seem petty, if you look a little deeper, it might be for something else.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not even going to respond. I'm going to ask you this question. How much does ego play a role in whether or not you accept someone's shit? In other words, you just said that you may not even like this person. The reality is that you got with them for a certain number of reasons, whether it was their representative or whatever it was. When you get into their baggage, their shit, it may be about, I'm going to take the time issue as one because that's important to me personally. Someone who's habitually late, if you are putting up with their lateness and not addressing it, it's because you're compromising based on other things that you're receiving from them. However, if it's a thing for you that this is something that's like a red flag, it has more to do, in my opinion, with your confidence in yourself and to a certain degree your ego. And it's all in how you bring it up. If you have a big ego, you're going to be like, yo, don't do that shit again. If you have more humility, you're going to say, hey, listen, I noticed that you have a problem being on time. And time is very important to me. So understand here that what I think you're saying and what I'm bringing back to you as a question is in terms of the stuck out of groove has more, in my opinion, to do with egos than it has to do with the love and willingness to compromise.
So egos are a personality trait, right? So that's legit, but I would put it under an umbrella.
Okay.
So whoever said opposites attract is probably the same idiot that said money can't make you happy.
Okay.
Right? That's the biggest crock of shit. Let me tell you something about opposites attract. That it will apply to race. It can apply to body types. It can apply to complexion. It does not apply to personality.
Well, it applies to men and women because we're opposites.
Right, but it doesn't apply to personality, okay? Like, you don't have to be just like somebody. Of course, that's ridiculous. But fundamentally, you have to be the same person. Like,
Right.
Maybe enjoy the same things, maybe same sense
You
of
have to
humor.
have commonalities.
Right. So the ego thing, it's a thing, but it's
Can
the
I
thing.
step in? Can you
Sure.
pass me the rock on this one? What you're talking about is emotional needs. So emotional intimacy, which is a critical part of any relationship survival, is based on those commonalities. If you don't have things in common, if you don't have an alignment in things that you enjoy doing together, how can you have intimacy?
Right. So your point, right? And ego is the thing, right? So, but along that same, there's also there's a list of things. So there's ego. There might be tempers. There might be like communication, like it's not what you say, but how you say it. Right. So I think ego is a legit thing. I just think it's part of a cluster of things. And so you ask, well, how much of it is ego? And I think by the time an argument ensues, sometimes it's just that thing, but sometimes it's a build-up. It's a composite of things, which is why oftentimes people are being in the midst of an argument and one person is thinking, yo, I didn't think it was that serious. Like, you're really taking it this far? But the other person may not even realize how much they have pent up. And that's the thing. So again, your original question is, well, why won't people let it go? Why won't they move forward? Usually it's because there's something holding them back from moving forward. And that thing might be unidentified, or it might be identified and never put on the table.
Well, I think you're 100% right. Let's talk about it from a standpoint of the fragility of ego with people who have anxiety. And let's talk about like intimacy avoidance. Those people who have intimacy avoidance are people who oftentimes, or in the psychological analysis of them, they have a very low self-worth because of whatever happened in their past. And their fear of intimacy is based on abandonment, that somehow they've been let down, they've been abandoned, and they don't want to have that feeling again. And so therefore they don't want to give of themselves more than a certain amount. So from a standpoint of ego, if they get into a disagreement or they get into a place with their partner that they are uncomfortable, they're pulling away not because of a lack of love for their partner, but for a lack of love for themselves. Their ego is fragile to themselves. So, the other side of that is, how do you make up?
This is where you have to get to know who you're with. I know it sounds real simple, but I don't think, in some cases, I don't think enough time is spent getting to know someone. Not just their likes and dislikes, but kind of like all that goes into them. Like, what brought them, at whatever point you meet them in their life. They have a lifetime of experiences to that point. And you don't have to know every individual thing about them, but you can pay attention to what they show you, and you can kind of make it about them. Because if, a person makes it about the other person and then vice versa, there's going to be a lot of learning going on. And then if there's scar tissue there, like from the past, it actually can be dealt with. I think so what you're saying is a very big hurdle, like a big deal. But I think a bigger deal is what the approach is to deal with that.
You're hitting something, so you talked about scar tissue, and I'm sort of leaning in on this one from the standpoint that as an athlete, having had injuries and having to deal with scar tissue, one of the things that you learn is that, yes, the scar tissue will always be there, but you can break it up and you could put a tattoo on it to cover it. But you also learn how to get past it and become a better overall person and athlete based on the scar tissue. And I'm going to use an example here. I know this has nothing to do with relationships, but I'm just using this example from, being an athlete. You break your ankle and you have to recover from that. For the rest of your life, your ankle is never going to be the same. However, the more you strengthen your ankle, the more you do exercises for your ankle, the more you change how you balance and move based on that injury, you could actually be a better player, a better overall athlete because of that injury, believe it or not. In relationships, when you're dealing with the other person and you learn these things about them and you're stuck in a rut, what are you doing to transition and change the relationship? Not the other person. If you're relying on the other person to get out of whatever issue they're dealing with, I think that's part of the issue, is that your own ego is preventing you from being able to, step up and say, how do I make this relationship better?
Transitions go both ways. An athlete can turn or break their ankle and not take rehab seriously.
Right.
Because they don't want it bad enough.
Right.
Right. So the transition there might be, I don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. Just like that, and just hang it up.
Right.
Or they go about their rehab half-ass and end up getting injured again.
Right.
Or worse, because they didn't do it seriously. So now you're compensating other parts of your leg for that ankle, and now you end up tearing another tendon or something. Right. So transitions go both ways. I think, fundamentally, you have to know what you want. That athlete that comes back bigger, stronger, just to use your analogy, the person that comes back in a relationship bigger and stronger, if you truly want it to work, and I don't mean saying you want it to work. I don't mean saying I really like sleeping with this person. I mean truly want it to work on all levels. You will try to help that other person. You'll look inward to see what you can do.
Right.
And then, so if that's the mentality, it won't be utopia, but through every tough time, if that's the approach on both sides, you'll be fine in the end.
All right. We'll be right back. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Pat, I want to talk about this issue from the standpoint of arguments that can't be settled. All right, we're back. This is Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Pat, you ended the last segment, really nicely. However, most relationships fail because of ego. We have a divorce rate that's over 50%. And in general, oftentimes you don't realize what you have until you've lost it. And that has to do with your own ego. You have an argument, you realize that this person is the best thing that's ever happened to you, but you have to stick by your guns and you walk away. How do you transition and change to get that person back? Or how do you transition and change to make sure that the next relationship you have, you do better? Or do you just stick in a rut, stay out of groove and just continue to fail with these relationships?
All right, so the transition, I think, is the fact that most relationships fail, in my opinion, not because of ego, but because of dishonesty. Like dishonesty with oneself.
Okay.
Dishonesty with your partner.
Okay.
So, you should be able to say exactly, or you should be able to, first of all, figure out exactly what you want, what your issues are, what you like, love, dislike, about yourself and what you like, love, dislike, or want in another person. Without that, every relationship you have will fail. Number one.
Okay.
So you have to be able to look in the mirror, see clearly. Okay. Then you need to be able to articulate or express those same feelings to the other person. And if that other person did the same thing, you need to be able to receive theirs. So I think fundamentally it comes down to like truth.
Right.
As a matter of fact, fun and truth, like our show.
Yeah.
You know, so
So
and-
going back to the original point that you made, that when you start a relationship, you send your representative. The reality is that over time, you have to reveal your truth, and you have to accept it in terms of the other person accepting your truth. And you have to be okay with whether or not they're willing to accept it, even though what you're hoping for when you reveal your truth is that if they have an issue, that they can change and transition to accept your truth.
So the whole honesty, dishonesty thing and accepting truth, there also shouldn't be any secrets.
Yeah.
So in a relationship, the secrets you guys have should be joint secrets. That's just between you two, right? Not secrets from each other. This is all in the same vein of truth, honesty, dishonesty. Now, let's talk about arguments that can't be settled. What's the real root cause? Because I think people can get through anything.
Right.
Let me tell you, when people have a disagreement, a lot of times there's two things going on. There's the thing they're arguing about, and then there's the fact that someone lied about it.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of times, the actual harsh, raw truth, the person that's angry can deal with that.
Right.
A lot of times, what pisses them off to no end is, okay, the subject itself is bad, but then you covered it up and
Right.
lied about it. And
Right.
a lot of times, what you hear in an argument is, you know, I've been living a lie. You've been doing this for 2 years, 18 months. You've been going through this. You didn't tell me. You lost all of our money and didn't tell me. You covered this up. Think about it. The person isn't even saying, how did you lose our money? What happened? They're
Right.
saying, I can't believe you covered this up.
Right.
So think about that. The dishonesty is the icing on the bad cake, right?
Right.
So these arguments that can't be settled, I don't think there's really a such thing in terms of the subject matter. I think what really can't be settled, these arguments that people cannot get past, comes down to one thing: disrespect.
And that goes back to ego, believe it or not. And I'm going to take a different side on that, which is that, do you know what the number one argument that is never settled and breaks up most relationships is? Not being able to say you're sorry. Believe it or not, but most people break up over a lack of apology from the other person. They can't get past the fact that if the other person did something that they didn't like, if the person doesn't apologize, they feel disrespected. They don't get into whether or not understanding the other person may not necessarily know how to apologize. They may not necessarily feel comfortable apologizing. They don't accept the person for who they are because, again, their ego is, you need to apologize. You did something wrong. You disrespected me. So ego is a huge thing in terms of how we manage ourselves, whether we're in a relationship or not. And whether we can get past our own ego is a huge thing in terms of transition or being stuck out of groove.
All right. So basically, in a nutshell, people get in their own way.
100%. All right. When we come back, we'll have Pat's PSA and my I don't give a fuck.
All right, we are back. Thanks for your patience, guys. Before we get into our closing, just want to say that on our next podcast, next recording, we'll be announcing the exact date of our next live broadcast.
That's correct. We will be live from the mini bar in Brooklyn with DJ Mikey Palms. Shout out to him. And it will be later this month, so stay tuned. Next podcast, we will give you the date, flyer, everything, so that you can check out our website, Fun and Truth in Black and White, at podbean.podbean.com or 11thhourproductions.com.
And just not forget, we didn't bring it up because I actually intentionally didn't bring it up. We're still having our charitable boxing event, and admittedly, on this break between podcasts, I've been doing everything wrong.
Yeah,
I've been training, been eating, drinking, man, you name it. But I'll be ready for that day. And again, it's for a good cause.
That's right.
So
that's Monday, November 25th, Long Island Fight for Charity, and we're looking forward to getting your support. Please follow us, like us, give us comments. We are looking forward to everything you can. All right,
Jay.
Yeah.
What is it that you don't give a fuck about?
Pat, I don't give a fuck about social status. And here's what I mean. Wendy Williams just took wife off her Facebook page. Now, not for anything. I appreciate Wendy. And what she's been through is a hell of a lot more than I think that anybody should ever have to go through. But taking wife off your social status after all of this is the most inconsequential thing that matters in life. In my personal opinion, why people feel it necessary to even put their social status out there, why it's important for the world to know who you're married to, who you're fucking, who you're not fucking. Truthfully, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. Keep your shit to yourself. Leave me out of it. I don't want to know. There you go.
My PSA. Don't project your shit onto other people. For example, if your marriage sucks ass and someone you know is getting married, don't be a dick and tell them all these reasons why they shouldn't get married. That person could be getting it right. They might have found the right person. Don't project your shit. If you failed at whatever endeavors in your life and someone else is taking a leap of faith and they're taking their shot, swinging their bat, don't tell them they're not gonna make it. Just because your shit didn't work out, don't project your crap onto someone else. And that includes to your children. Don't project. Your life is your life. And you know what? That same energy, so long as you have breath in your lungs, right? And you wake up the next day, you can still change the direction of your own life.
Pat, you realize that you just told 90% of the internet to suck on their own haterade. What is everybody going to do now? All right, this has been Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. We love you. Please like, comment, follow.
Peace and love. Missed you guys.
All right. Catch you next go around.